Hi, welcome to Storm the Field. I'm Mathis, and I'm joined here by Rob and Quentin. Once again, Trey Slack, and he can't be here. And so today we're going to get through our Week 7 game breakdowns and picks. And we only have so much time. Quentin's actually going to have to get out of here early. And so we only get 7 for you tonight. If there's anything else you want to talk to us about, hit us up in social media. We'll be happy to talk to you about the games that we didn't mention. And following that, we're gonna come up with our upset alert and watch. Upset alert is a game we're picking. Upset watch is just something to look out for. One of them that I have is already playing right now, so that's why we're really wanting to hurry up here. And so we're gonna go ahead and start out with our first game, 11 o'clock kickoff, big noon, Penn State at Michigan. Michigan is favored by 7. Over/under for this game is 50.5. And so, what do y'all think on this one?
My first question or my first thought was Michigan is not going to cover. And then I ended up talking myself into saying they're not even going to win. So I'm going with pick number one. I'm going to already step out there with an upset alert. I'm going Penn State on the road beating Michigan. I I I know Michigan is a good team, and I have some. I listened to some experts talk about them over the last week, and they can be considered overrated. They are a high powered team, but they really haven't played anybody. I don't think better than ranked 90 in the FBS of their five, 6 games. They they I forget the exact statistic, but at least half of those games, those teams were 120 or less. So they've been able to beef up their numbers, and they're just they're at home, so that's going to hurt Penn State. I just think Penn State hasn't been top tiered in such a long time. Michigan has been there the last couple of years. I think this might be Penn State's year.
Do you know when the last time
And with
Penn State beat a top 5 ranked opponent on the road? 1994.
yep,
I'm not quite sold on Penn State being top tier. They started off 5-0 this year. You know what else they started off last year? 5-0. And so
yep.
I don't really know if I trust them to go on the road and beat a Michigan team that I think is good. Now, if Penn State does win this game, I think they need to establish their run and let that fuel their pass. And you can't let Michigan get ahead in the points because they're a lot stronger team running the ball than they are throwing the ball. I don't think you're going to throw yourself back into a game. And so I really think that you need to take advantage early if you're Penn State. I just don't see him doing it. I got Michigan. Quentin?
Yeah, I have Michigan too. I agree with a lot what Mathis said. I mean, Penn State's running game has been stronger this year, but I also don't think they've faced anyone with
Penn
as
State hasn't
tough as
played
a
anyone
front
either.
as
That's the thing.
Hey, and can I throw a stat out at you?
No.
And I'm not going to have the stat exactly right, but when I'm on an island, I'm 10-2, and it looks like I'm on an island again on this game.
well. Penn State has not. They've not ran the ball particularly well. I think Michigan has probably historically one of the better fronts in the Big Ten, and I don't know if I trust Penn State to be able to establish a run, especially against guys like I forget his name, but I don't know. I don't really trust Penn State's offense enough. I think Sean Clifford is really good before the snap. I don't know how great he is after the snap, so I'm not gonna trust him to go out there and win the game. And I think that if Penn State's going to be in the game, I think that their last drive may come down to Sean Clifford.
What exactly does that? He's good before the snap. He's not good after. Does that mean when the play
Pre-snap
he's
reads,
a good He's very intelligent. He's good. He's smart before the ball.
Reads
He
defense
knows
as
how to set
well,
up
but isn't
protections. He
doesn't
knows how
really
to
like
get word
have
guys
the
where they need to
arm
go. Knows how
talent,
to
stuff like that.
audible. I don't know how great he is at actually making the throws that they'll need him to do against this Michigan defense, which has proved to be very good.
Yeah, for
I'm not going to
Michigan,
act like Penn State has played a bunch of tough opponents when they really haven't. They played Purdue, who's proved not to be a super, super great team. So
exactly who Penn State has played. I know they played Auburn. I can go back and look, and I know they beat them pretty bad. And Auburn, I would say, is definitely maybe a top 75 team. But
really,
hey,
I'm
we're
looking
running
at
out
the
of time here.
statistics. Okay.
One last thing. I think Michigan, one of my points for them is early down defense. I think if you get Sean Clifford into obvious passing down on third down, you're going to be able to beat him that way. That's all we have time for this game. Moving on, we got the Oklahoma State Cowboys going to Fort Worth to play the TCU Horned Frogs. TCU, the lower ranked opponent at 13, is favored by 4 in an over-under that you almost only see in the Big 12 nowadays. This really is like a 2014, 2015 over-under spread that you'd be looking at. 68 and a half. And that's just unbelievable, especially because I actually have the over on this game. And so, since TCU's at home, we'll start with them. What do y'all think that TCU needs to do in order to win this game?
I think they need to play exactly how they've been playing on offense. I think they've been playing really strong on offense. Their defense has looked way better than I thought it was going to. So I think that they also have a very good chance of holding Oklahoma State to less points than Oklahoma State is wanting to score. TCU has averaged 57 points at home this year, and they have played Oklahoma at home this year. So I think that's very encouraging. I don't know how much stronger Oklahoma State is compared to the rest of the Big 12 at this point. I think that there's about 3 or 4 teams at the top who are pretty much, I would probably call it play on an even playing field. And what are they, -4 TCU is at home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even on a neutral field, they'd probably be favored by about one and a half points. So
they're really calling it about a pick 'em. Just I think another point kind of goes into the spread for TCU due to the fact that Oklahoma State's defense was on the field for 104 plays last week, and now they're going on the road. And so I think that kind of goes into it. I think 2 rested teams, they're saying it's even. Rob, what do you have on this?
Well, first question, Quentin, what did you say their points per game at home was?
57.
57
points per game at home so far.
Well, for the season, home and away, Oklahoma State and TCU are both tied at 46.4. But the yards per game, TCU has them by 60, 530 to 470. Yards against, this is their defense. TCU's 20 yards better. So I would say, these defenses play, it seems like they're playing the same way their offense is playing. They're always going up against high-powered, fast-moving offenses. I think it's going to come down to literally who maintains possession, not just time of possession, but I'm talking about turnovers, and not throwing risky passes downfield or so forth. But statistically, I would have to give the edge to TCU. They're at home, so they get that extra edge. I think TCU is going to cover, but I think this is probably going to be the best game of the day.
I agree on that point,
especially if you like to see some scores.
Oh yeah, this is I have this as a 42-38 shootout. I have TCU coming out on top just because I think they're going to be able to get the ball to their playmakers and have slightly more explosive plays. But Oklahoma State, like when I was coming through for the pros and cons of each team, I was just writing stuff up and down the board for Oklahoma State. And I almost convinced myself into picking them, but I think it's a really bad spot for them. But I think that if they're able to make Max Duggan and TCU uncomfortable early, then what they're going to be able to do is take the lead and run the ball because I think they have a really good run game, and I think that they'd kind of own that time of possession, which I think would go into it. All that to say, I'm still taking TCU just because I don't know what to really expect them to be able to do against that TCU offense, especially based off of what happened last week, just how gassed they must be. And
Yeah,
so, give me a high scoring matchup, TCU on top.
If,
yeah,
if both teams play to their statistical averages, this will be a 93-point game, and about 850 yards of offense will be allowed. 1,000. Well, and you can't have one and the other, but about 1,000 yards in offensive uh, yards.
yeah,
So
yeah. Last year, going off your point about if they can make Max Duggan uncomfortable, I think that TCU will be able to make Spencer Sanders uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Pretty sure he led the Big 12 in interceptions last year. I think he threw 4 in the Big 12 title game
He
last
did.
year. So that's just another point I would look at. I'm not trying to take anything away from Oklahoma State.
I think they're both really good teams. I think this could be a preview to a Big 12 championship matchup. Both teams take care of business the rest of the way. This could be really, really interesting. Speaking of games that I see being really, really interesting, NC State going up to the Syracuse Dome, whatever they're calling it nowadays. Syracuse favored 3.5 points against the Wolfpack. And this over under, night and day to what we just saw. This one's at 42. And I'm still taking the under on it. Because I really just don't know what to think. I think it feels like NC State should be favored. Am I? Because
yeah,
at first, this is going to be one of my upset picks. I think it's a bad spot for NC State. Injured quarterback, not really sure if Devin Leary is going to play. They got almost no yards in the second half last week against Florida State. I think it's a miracle they were able to pull out that game. I think it was kind of a FSU fumble, but I think they really need to take advantage of the slow start for NC State, just with all they have against them, and play with the lead. And they need to give their defense a gut check that I'm not really sure that they've had up until this point, because they haven't had really a super high-powered offense put the screws to them really. So what do y'all think? Give me some of y'all's picks or thoughts.
my my gut tells me NC State is a better team than Syracuse. They're 5-1. Their only loss is to Clemson, and I know it looked closer than it actually was, but uh, and Syracuse is a tough place to play this year. That's a crazy atmosphere in there, but uh, I hate to say this, but one of the main reasons I'm going with NC State is I just don't think Syracuse is good enough to be 6-0 and top 15 team.
I can
And
agree with
that's what
that.
will happen if they beat NC State.
Yeah, I think it's more of a spot thing than a straight
Yeah.
up talent.
I,
I think
I
NC
think
State's the
that
better
this game
team.
will be one of those universal self-correcting things and put things back the way they should be.
Maybe so. Quentin, what do you have?
Yeah, I could probably agree. I mean, I think that NC State is just a better team. I guess Syracuse could win, but I don't know how. I don't know if they have the offensive weapons to throw it and run it all over NC State. I think the NC State could win this game in like an Iowa fashion with like a
Yeah,
touchdown and 3 field goals. So
I wrote down rock
I
fight
think
in my thing.
I think it'll be close, but I think NC State will win.
Yeah, personally, I think they should have lost last week. Just from a purely game perspective, they didn't play good enough to win that game, and so that also
It
could
still
be a
hurt.
universal. Well, they just didn't play good enough to win that game. You can go watch the film, look at the stats. They just didn't. Especially with the quarterback hurt, I think that can be another one of those universal correctionness things where should have lost last week. So if you barely win a game you're not supposed to or shouldn't, then you might lose a game you should win. If that makes any sense. And
It'll come back and bite you.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I really don't have a strong lean on this. I took Syracuse. They're at home. They're the healthier team right now, and I mean you can only play who's on your schedule, and they've won games. They've
Yeah.
beat Purdue. They took care of Virginia. They look like they're a pretty good team. I don't think they're like a legit conference contender, uh, especially in that division. But
This was one of 3 or 4 games that I literally did not decide. I thought about it since Tuesday, and of the 24 games, there were 3 or 4 that I just could not make up my mind until about lunchtime today.
yeah, I mean
And this is one of them.
if y'all throw me on an island here, then I might take NC State just because it's not something I'm really wanting to go out on a
Go on
limb
with
for.
NC State.
All right, well,
I think Quentin said too. You're
Well,
going with
I know, but we have
I
Trey
mean,
still. If
if
it's me and
there-
Trey, I might still take Syracuse. I don't have a strong
if
read on it.
If Syracuse wins, there could be serious ACC championship ramifications the next week against Clemson.
Oh yeah, that would be
sure.
crazy. All right,
Yeah.
That
here we go. Next
Number
game.
4.
Preseason, I said, I don't think Kentucky is going to be good, or just as good as they were last year. I wasn't really buying into the hype, and what was it? 4 or 5 weeks into the year, they were like, Mathis, you gotta buy into the hype. And what have we seen? Predicted it last week, didn't call it, but I said, hey, watch out for it. Here could be another loss.
Yep.
This week, I'm not going to let it slip through my fingers. I am taking Mississippi State to hand Kentucky their 3rd straight L.
Yep.
And
I could. I
Yeah.
agree.
apparently Will Levis is going to play. Personally, I don't really think it matters. I think Kentucky, you need to avoid that rust coming off of a foot injury. And so if you have a foot injury, those things can be dangerous, especially in terms of how well you can throw the ball down the field. Because, I mean, you think about how much pressure you have to put onto your feet just to be able to get the ball off that deep. And another thing, defensively, you got to bend but don't break. Because Mississippi State, I wrote down offense, offense, offense. Because if everything's even, if they're able to if both offenses can get what they want, Mississippi State's going to win this game. If it's a shootout, Mississippi State's going to win. And I think they win close, too, if that's what happens. I have them winning by 6, and I think you have to win the turnover battle, whichever. I think turnovers will definitely come into play with this game. I have a little less than a touchdown. Would not be surprised if it was more. I'd honestly be pretty shocked if Kentucky comes through and just wins this game outright. If it's close, I still probably feel like I'm on the right side of it, but I'd be shocked if Kentucky goes out and handles business against Mississippi State.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Mississippi State's offense is just really, really good, man. I mean, Will Rogers is getting almost no credit. He's first in passing yards in the nation with 2,100, second in touchdowns with 22, and then he's he's tied for 40th in interception with 3. I mean, I guess a lot you could say it has to do with the Mike Leach offense, but I mean, still, I think
they're running the ball
he's
pretty
playing
good too, about 100 yards per game, and on.
State, I didn't buy into Mississippi State early on, but they are definitely underrated, and I think nationally they're just not one of those fashionable teams. And I think Mike Leach, he's not a Nick Saban type. He'll say things purposely to just kind of piss people off, and they're just not getting the respect. The only thing, my only concern with Mississippi State is there's no reason why they should lose this game, and call it karma or whatever, but I'm going with Mississippi State, but man, Kentucky is better than 4-2, and they're definitely better than 4-3, and I
don't think so.
3 straight losses. They do have a lot of injuries. Mississippi State showing none right now, so that's an advantage. Just wonder what the home crowd is going to do for Kentucky, but I'm going with Mississippi State. But this was one of those games that just scared me flat out.
I had them at 8-4 preseason, and I wasn't close to 9-3 with Kentucky. I was almost considering 7-5. And so I don't think they're that team. Uh, I mean, I think you're just kind of the third best team in the East by default, just because I think that no one else has really come and take it. Uh, other than that, I think Mississippi State probably covers by this four, even with Will Levis playing. He's going to be a first round draft pick just because I think he's a good prospect. I don't think he's a world beater. I don't really think that he's going to win you football games. That's just me, and love it if he proves me wrong, but I just don't see it. And I mean, y'all know me. I will definitely eat my words after the fact. I'm more interested in getting it right than having it right. And so, but just coming from a prediction standpoint, I just can't, in good conscience, predict Will Levis to beat Mississippi State after what I've seen. Do y'all have any more comments? Move on.
No.
All right, heading out to the Pac-12, where the Utah Utes are favored by 3.5 against the SC Trojans. I know we all circled this game when we were going through our Pac-12 predictions. This seemed like it was going to be the conference championship preview, maybe before the rematch, and it still may be. But geez, I mean, look at Oregon, look at UCLA. They might have something to say, but this is definitely the biggest Pac-12 game of the week. And I mean, just to preview, next week we're going to have UCLA, Oregon. So we're going to know a whole lot about these four teams in the next 2 weeks. Start off with the home team. Rob, what does Utah need to do to bounce back?
Well, they need to stop, making turnovers. I think they need to control the ball. They're at home. Their backs are against the wall. This will be the first real test for USC. I mean, Utah's played some tough opponents. Lost a tough one against Florida in the opener, I believe it was, and then, I had them 5-1 at this game. I don't remember USC, but I certainly didn't have them undefeated. I think USC hasn't been playing the type of competition that Utah has. I'm picking Utah right now.
Yeah, I'm picking Utah also. Quentin, what do you have?
I'm gonna go with Utah as well. I think that USC really has like one way they can win. So I think that they have to score a lot on offense, and they have to get a lot of turnovers like they have been. And I don't know that they're going to do that against an experienced Cam Rising. So what I think Utah plus one.
I'm looking at their general stats right now. Utah's had a much tougher schedule, in my opinion, and literally points per game, points allowed, yards per game, yards allowed. They're almost identical, and that just USC hasn't played a Utah type team, and Utah has already played one or two.
Yeah,
they've got similar stats, and they're at home.
Yeah, I think USC's been able to.
They're pissed.
They've been able to play with the lead.
That had legitimate. They had legitimate playoff aspirations, and they're upset right now.
Yeah, I think Utah wins this game. Pretty similar to the way Mississippi State does by about 6, about 2 field goals, roughly a touchdown. Have them covering. USC's been able to play with the lead almost their entire season, and with their backs against the wall, they almost dropped a game against Oregon State, who Utah handled. This is USC's. Really, it's their third road game. That they played Stanford, but there was more USC people there than Stanford. There's no, I mean, it's probably the second worst team in the Pac-12 behind Colorado. So I think they're going into a rough environment, and I don't really see that working out too well for them. They've been tested seldom this year. If you're Utah, you got to be able to keep them from just pouring the points on in the second half. And if you're USC, if you're Lincoln Riley, you look at Caleb Williams and you say, "Go win me the game." And but I mean, USC they have really rough run defense, and I think that's what's really helped them, or what's really helped them with kind of disguising that is the fact that they've been playing with the lead, so teams are having to throw the ball instead of running it. Because I think Utah is
Yeah.
able to keep the game close, if not control it, and they're just going to be able to run it up and down
Yeah.
on USC, and I think
Yeah.
that
And
it's going to get highlighted.
the more Utah runs the ball, the less time USC's offense has on the field.
Yeah, and
For sure.
they just can't
It's going to limit
stop the
their
run.
opportunities.
The
Yeah.
only way they can stop the run is by making them stop running but the ball by having these teams have to play catch up.
Yeah.
And I think with the home field coming off a loss, being real fired up, meaning more to them right now, I think USC drops this game. I think we all picked it preseason. I think this is when they're. I mean, anyone who's watched their games knows what their weaknesses are. I think they're just finally running into a team that's able to exploit those weaknesses.
Yeah.
And so he's needing to head out, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our last headline game. This is our tiebreaker, and just to anyone who is new around the channel, we do a pick'em, college football pick'em through CBS, and we just pick the game straight up. I mean, we talk about spreads and stuff, but we're not really betting guys, so we just pick the game straight up. And but if we all get the same record, then there has to be some kind of tiebreaker, and they do it by total points. And so for this game specifically, I'm gonna need a total score and then a final score. So y'all are gonna give me that, and even if we tie with the tiebreaker for some reason or something silly, then we know what your exact score was, and whoever you picked and whatever it is, by that, then that's how we'll know who wins. This week's game, biggest game in the country, just terms in probably who's going to watch. You can say it's the highest two ranked teams that are going to play. I mean, you can say Michigan, Penn State, but just purely this is a little closer. So we went with this game, and there's a huge narrative going around. Is Bryce Young, reigning Heisman champion, going to play against Tennessee on the road for Bama? And I think, personally, that's what's going to end up coming down to it. Rob, I have a feel of where you're going, and so you go ahead and kick us off.
I don't know for a fact. I've heard a lot of things that Bryce Young will be ready to play. If he does play, he will not be 100%. I think Tennessee has that they've been showing it on the field, and not that Alabama hasn't, but Alabama hasn't been that impressive to me like they have been in recent years. I'm going with Tennessee at home, and I don't have them covering, or actually just by winning covers the spread because Alabama's a touchdown favorite.
Yeah, they're a touchdown favorite, which kind of leans me to believe that Bryce Young's going to play. Vegas always knows.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, you can make the case that 80% Bryce Young versus 100%. Nobody knows what that difference is. Some people will say, well, an 80% Bryce Young is better than 100% anybody. But I'm going Tennessee 34-31, which didn't intend on it, but it just happens to be within a point of the over-under right now.
I'm over on it. Actually, no, maybe not. Quentin, do you want to go ahead so you can?
Yeah.
Put me on an island, please.
No, I'm not going to. But I don't know. This is a really, really bad matchup for Alabama. Tennessee has, I think, a top 7 run defense in the nation. I think that Alabama's going to try and establish a run game. I don't know if Tennessee's going to let them. I know they have Jahmyr Gibbs, but he has a lot of pressure on him this game. I think if Alabama puts Bryce Young in a lot of long yardage scenarios where he needs to throw the ball down the field, I think since that throwing shoulder is hurt, it's not 100%. So I don't know how effective he's going to be down the field. I think that he's definitely going to play a good, strong game still, but I think that it's going to be a really close game. They struggled with penalties all year. Nayland is going to be super loud. It's going to be bumping. So I want Tennessee in a close one, 28-31. Tennessee.
See, this is what I find hilarious. Everyone's talking about rough spot for Bama. Guys, be worried. Bama's going to drop this game. I think Tennessee just outclasses them here. give me Tennessee by 3 points. It's like, even with all of that, you say they're going to win by
Oh
that
yeah,
much.
yeah.
And so
Hey,
I
I
have,
would feel sick betting against Nick Saban.
I know, here's my thing. This feels to me like retro Nick Saban. They're like, oh, we got him in a spot. They're vulnerable. Now it's time to strike. And you get right there. You have everything going for you, and he beats you anyways. And so I actually have two predictions. I think personally Bryce Young is worth about 2 touchdowns in this game. And so I have Tennessee scoring 35 points regardless. With Jalen Milroe, Jahmyr Gibbs, whoever else you have, I think you're a little more one dimensional. I think if Tennessee plays Jalen Milroe instead of Bryce Young, if they face him, they're able to hold Bama to 24 points. I think if Bryce Young plays, Alabama comes out on top by about a field goal. So I agree. I think it's a tough spot. I think if Bama wins close. But I think if they're playing Jalen Milroe, they're just the better team. I think they handle Alabama. I think they win by about 11. But so those are my two options. I think it's a 2:30 game, and so
Yeah.
we'll know before the game if he's going to play or not. And if
We didn't know
Probably,
against
we most likely will, and
we probably won't.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
he
You
had them
might.
both suited up, both warming up.
Yeah,
I'm
Saban's,
also the manager, and so if I right now I have Bama winning by 3, and if Tennessee wins, since I'm saying it now, it's not like I'm changing a pick. I have 2 picks, and I just don't know which one I'm gonna go with depending on what happens. And so
But you will make a pick by 2:29.
yeah, the pick's gonna be set, and so once we're there, I'm gonna. So I kind of have. I mean, what some people do in a play call, you just go through and you you call 2 plays, and then you actually run the play based off which defense you see.
The defense is showing you.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this game. I think it's gonna be an entertaining one, regardless. I'm probably not gonna be mad on either side of the pick, unless for some reason I have Tennessee and Bryce Young goes out there and just wins. If Tennessee comes, or if Jalen Miller comes out there and beats Alabama, then hats off. But I'd feel so stupid if I picked against Alabama with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner against the team that Nick Saban's never lost to at Alabama. And so, with Bryce Young playing, which it seems like he's probably going to, give me the Tide. And if not, give me the Volunteers kind of just walking their way, death march to Georgia near the end of the season. That, regardless, is probably going to end up being for the SEC East, no matter how it goes. Just because it's going to matter way more about the head-to-head. If these two teams can come out virtually unscathed, maybe with 1 loss each, I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. I think Georgia has they're going to get all that they can handle in that SEC East matchup, just in the race. I mean,
This could be a rematch in the SEC championship.
Yeah.
Could be.
All right. Well, that is all we have for our headline games, and we're gonna go off just for a second so Quentin can get out of
Gotta
here,
go pay the bills.
and then me and Rob will be here for our upset alert picks. And so, Quentin, if you want to go ahead and go.
See y'all.
Bye.
We are back. Rob, how you doing? How you feeling about your picks this week?
I'm doing fine. Ooh, that was a short break.
Yeah, a really short break. You didn't have time to light a cigar, start a new one. All right. So, I don't have the graphics prepared for this one just because I wasn't prepared for us to get just me and you here. So, we're just going to have to run through this old school. We can go through our upset alert. Rob?
Well, I have I have four upsets for this week. We've already talked about three of them: Penn State, NC State, and Tennessee. So, really, the only what I would call upset alert, which isn't really that big of a game, I hate to admit. I'll have to do some thinking on what could potentially be an upset watch. But the only other one I have is Michigan State at home beating Wisconsin.
Wow.
So and it's a pretty big spread, 7.5 points. So Michigan State has not been performing to their expectations this year. I think this could be a correction game. Wisconsin, I don't think anyone really expected much of them. They're 3-3.
Fired
But
the coach.
winning by 7 on the road at Michigan State, that's going to be hard to do.
I agree. I didn't even know that was what that spread was. I think I lean Wisconsin on that game just because I don't like what I've seen from Michigan State's run game or
Yeah.
defense at all, and so that's kind of a worry. I'm not really going to be on an island either way for that. I don't think. I think we're probably going to be split on that game.
Yeah.
I have an upset pick, so I went out and picked this, and just so y'all know, these picks aren't final and they lock when the game starts. So if this is a 11 o'clock kick, then I can change my pick up until 11 or 10:59. So right now I have the Kansas Jayhawks 5-1 going into Norman, Oklahoma and winning because I think Oklahoma is just kind of a battered team. They might just be quit for the year. And so it might be a little bit of what Texas had this last year. Would not be
I
surprised
can
at all
see
if it's
that.
another game that
I'm going to throw it. I want to throw another one out there, which is a much riskier upset watch, but this is to pay homage to Trey, who couldn't make it tonight. Notre Dame's playing at home. I think they're 17-point favorites against Stanford. And I don't know what kind of team Notre Dame is. And I think 17-point favorites over anybody is a little outrageous for Notre Dame. So I could see Stanford coming in. I mean this is a rivalry. This is one of those games that it's Pac-12 against Independent, and this game has meant a lot in the past. And I could see Stanford coming in and beating Notre Dame.
yeah. I have two more
But
games I
I'm
haven't
picking Notre
picked.
Dame.
I have two more games I haven't. I'm not picking. These are upset watch, so just look out for it. And by the time this video is out, one of these games will have already been completed. I have West Virginia +3 against Baylor, and that is happening right now, which is why we're probably going to try and get out of here pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so I have that one. I don't really like what I've seen from Baylor and West Virginia for all that they've shown us this year. They have a good quarterback. I think they have the better quarterback in this matchup. And so West Virginia, they don't have a great record. I think their record isn't necessarily indicative of how tough this team is to play. I think they've had some definite good matchups. I mean, with Pitt and then with Kansas, who turns out that loss looks worse. The loss doesn't look as bad by the day.
They should have lost. Pitt should have lost to West Virginia. That was gifted to them.
Yeah, I agree. But then the other one,
there's one more game. One more game. And I just noticed this. I mean, I knew about it when I was going through picking, but there's one that the odds makers are begging us to pick. And this goes back to FSU making atones for that horrible call at the end of the NC State game. They are 3.5-point underdogs to Clemson playing at home. That one, if that's truly an accurate spread, that is a major potential upset watch. I mean, okay, so they covered and won by a point. Big deal. This is Clemson, number 4 in the nation. That's a big game.
I don't necessarily see it as it being a rough spot for Clemson. I think Clemson's kind of coming to their own now. I think Florida State's kind of sinking back down to reality, which I think is still a good team. I just don't necessarily think that they're going to be up there with the top 10s competing.
Yeah.
I think really what they showed you last week in a game that they found out how to lose it, which showed you much more. They looked a lot more like what Florida State teams have looked like in the past several years, not what they looked like back when your guy was there, Rob.
Yeah.
The last game I want to mention will stay in
Johnny.
the ACC. Virginia Tech +7 at Miami. And as we know, Miami has no home field advantage. Middle Tennessee walked in there and won that game. And I mean, they're on a 3-game losing streak in the last month. They had a bye week. That's the only game they didn't lose. I'm just not so sure that they're going to come out here and win. And I'm not predicting they're going to lose just because I don't think a whole lot of Virginia Tech. But I'm going to have Miami on upset watch at least until they show me that they can win some football games and beat who they're supposed to beat.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, so something interesting on the games that you picked. I think you picked 6 games, and this might be a first this year, but every Power 5 conference is represented with a significant game this week.
Wow.
You got Penn State, Michigan in the Big East, Big 10. You got TCU, Oklahoma State in the Big 12, Tennessee, Alabama in the SEC, NC State, Syracuse, ACC, and then of course USC and Utah. This is a pretty nationwide. Could be better than Week 6 traditionally is.
I think it will be. I think this week might be the most important week. It might be the Week 6 of last year, and if you didn't know anything about that, then you're really missing out because that was just an amazing week last year. And I think this, but I mean, it's kind of, if y'all don't watch Josh Pate at the late kick, you need to. He talks about every week. He calls it the Every Given Saturday Tour because every week matters so much. Texas could drop a game against Iowa State this week. I don't really predict it's going to happen. I think Texas is a little bit of a different team. That's just an example that came to mind. But, I mean, that could knock them out of – I mean, people are talking about them being the first 2-loss playoff team.
Did you notice where Josh Pate – did you notice where Josh Pate had Texas in his power rankings?
Oh, obviously. Obviously I did.
I think it was 4 or 5.
Yeah, they're 4. All right, well, that is all we have for you today. We will get back to you for our sweet Week 7 reaction show coming Monday. And I cannot wait. I just know we're going to have another great week of games. I'll be up early, get my chicken minis from Chick-fil-A, and then be watching College Game Day and just
I got 2 things.
Cover it.
I haven't checked the weather recently, but a couple days ago there was a small chance of rain Saturday, so let's pray that the weather stays nice. And number 2, I don't know if you know yet, but you're already down by 10 in tonight's game, going with West Virginia.
I didn't. They were up at one
17-7
point.
17-7 Baylor.
Oh, I didn't pick it. That's.
Oh, I thought you went with West Virginia. Oh, was that a watch?
That was a watch. My pick was Kansas.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I got to get this game on, so I'll have to let you go, Rob.
Okay.
I will see you
See
either
you
tomorrow or Saturday. All right. Thanks for watching.
All right.
See you next time. Bye.